Hello there, and welcome to this video. So what we're doing today is, well, basically, in the news recently, there's been talks of expanding the Scottish Premiership. There's been talks of downsizing it as well, which to me is a bit stupid. But everyone seems to be in favour of, expanding it. So there's been talks about, expanding it to 14 or 16. And what we're going to do today is go through what 16 teams should be in the Scottish Premiership, this new Scottish Premiership. So let's get the obvious ones out of the way, even though there's two of them. Where are they? Look, in an ideal world, I'd say get rid of Rangers and Celtic. They make it a two-team league, but they're the money makers. They're the teams that people come to watch. Big stadiums, big fan bases, but again, do they dominate the league? Yeah, and are they just annoying? Also, yeah. So next up, I'm going to call this the Big Six, Scotland. I might get some disagreements on this. It's non-order. Um, there they are, and there. So you've got Aberdeen, Hearts, Dundee United, and Hibs. Aberdeen, only Scottish team to win a European Cup that's not named these two. Bet Real Madrid, which feels like just an insane fact that they bet Real Madrid in a cup final. I want to say 81. You've got Hearts, another big team, even if they've been a bit crap this season. But they're always, they're a big team. Usually it's between Hearts and Aberdeen that'll battle out for third. Of course, not this season, but Hearts, they've had some big players on their books. They've had Shankland, of course, they've got Shankland. You know, it's not just this ranking isn't just about size, but I think you've got to take into account from a neutral perspective. All that will be quickly thrown out the window later on for me. But you've got to take it in from a neutral perspective. I know for these four teams will provide entertainment to league. Dundee United, they're a bit of a yo-yo team. Dundee United seem to be doing really well this season, but again, they've had big players on the books. Ryan Gold, Andy Robertson, just named two like recent big players. They're representing Dundee as in sitting. All six of these teams they represent a city in Scotland. The four biggest cities in terms of size. So just to add on to that in terms of, it was always going to be obvious Dundee FC were going to be in there. The Dundee Derby, really big, one of the biggest derbies in Scotland. Probably, in my opinion, third. But, because Old Firm's obviously the biggest, we can't deny that. And I'd probably say the Edinburgh Derby, then the Dundee Derby. You know, you've got Hearts and Hibs. So I'll get onto who, because Aberdeen's going to have a rivalry in this league. Anyway, my logic was you got the big six teams and you have a rival for each of them. And I'll get on who that is later. But my next team I've gone with is, where are they? Where's Kelly? Kelly should be here. Kelly, there we go. Kelly, another big team. You've had some, Derek Kess, a really big manager in Scottish football. Steve Clough obviously done a brilliant job at Kelly, and then went on to get the Scotland job. No, they're not doing the best this season, but again, it's not about just this season. You can't factor it up. Oh, this team's doing really poor this season. You'll see that definitely later on with one of the teams that I've picked. But yeah, Kelly's a big team. I really forgot. I've just not spoken about Hibs enough, or at all. Hibs, of course, another big team. Again, you've got your rivalry. First team, Kelly, first team I've picked that I'm not actually from a city. They've got good ties apparently. I need to. getting try to kill pie. It's a pain for me to get to Kilmarnock, which is why I've not been to them. Next up is St Mirren. I can't remember. I mean, yeah, it's Paisley, so it's not nice. But yeah, St Mirren, obviously, another big team. They sacked Sir Alex Ferguson. They're doing really well this season, St Mirren. They're sitting sixth. They've just pipped Hearts to sixth place. And, again, they're doing really, really well. And they're always a team that, they're always sort of floating within the top six. If they're not in it, they're always fighting for it. They're never really in danger of going down, especially in the last couple of seasons. So for me, I feel like we've sort of just earned it in the top six in the 16 team Premier League. Next up is Motherwell. They are Motherwell's a decently sized team in terms of Scottish history in that they've not been relegated a while. I know they're not always a team that are going to be challenging to get into the top three. They were doing really well this season actually, and they sacked Stuart Kettlewell, which was a stupid decision. And but again, if you look at it across the whole, they are definitely a team I think deserves to be in the Scottish Premiership. As you're going to see, by the way, I've got here the Scottish Championship, and you'll notice why in a minute. But I'm just going to put a couple teams like Airdrie. I know they've been poor this season, Airdrie. Of course, they bet Dunfermline 3-0, which was funny. But I might as well just get this one over with because it's partly biased, but I've got to explain my logic. Where are we? There we are. Of course, Rafe's going to be in there. We've been chapping on the door of the Premiership for years now. We were really unfortunate not to go up last year. It was very frustrating as well. We played really well against Dundee. Dundee were just crap last season. The fact that they went up just shows how inconsistent we were. But we've been chapping on the Premiership for a while. Will it happen? I have faith next season if we don't make playoffs this season. If we make playoffs, I think we've got a decent chance. We're in with a shout actually if we get playoffs. We're only 2 points off, but the difficulty is, we're quite bad for bottling. I'll admit that we bottled the league last season. We really should have won that league, especially with how Dundee United were playing. We really should have won the league, but we bottled it. There was games we should have won, like against the likes of AR. We should bet. There was a game we drew 1-1 with Dundee United. We really should have won that, and it's definitely a problem. We can't defend. We've been like this for years. We just cannot defend to save our lives, and it's ultimately always going to cost us. I think we've definitely proved this season defensively, and it's why I think again, if we don't have playoffs, if we can build up on that, we can easily get promoted. I suppose speaking of championship, I'm reluctant to put them up here. I know a Falkirk fan, and I bet if they are watching this, I bet they are. You'll love this. Falkirk, they're a big team. I'll admit that. Big in terms of first of all. Obviously, they were in League One for a few years, similar to us, but they've done back to back because they basically won the league. Let's be honest here. They've got 3 games to play, and unless Livingston can just go on and win their next 3 games, I don't see them doing that. And of course, Falkirk would have to lose as well. I see Falkirk winning the league. I don't actually have anything terrible against Falkirk. I just don't like the manager. I don't like John McGlynn. The whole his reign at Rafe very ended on a very sour note. For those of you who don't know, I'm not going into detail because if you know, you know. But I feel like you have to put the team that wins the championship in this and it's obviously going to be Falkirk. But speaking of the championship title, a team I thought could win it, but sort of petered out would be Ayr. Now Ayr, similar to Rafe in a way that they've not been in the Prem for a while, but they've been knocking on the door. They lost the playoffs a few years back, but I think one of the main reasons I've got Ayr in here, of course, they've been chapping on the Prem for a while, is the Ayrshire derby between Kelly and yeah, again, I said from a neutral point of view, you want the league to be a 10, and nothing's better than a derby. The Ayrshire derby, a pretty good derby. Just I'll get back to it, but I'm just gonna. I know I was talking about derbies, but Dunfermline really shouldn't. I'm not putting that in the Prem, and that is probably bias. Not putting Dunfermline in the Prem, but you know, they've just been put us for ages, and they'd be like the Sheffield United last season. Last season, Sheffield United, they'd be that for the Prem. They'd be the team that everyone just beats and beats comfortably. I know there's going to be Dunfermline fans that say, "Oh, we bet he's um, twice this season." Okay, I'll give you that. But when was the last time he's bet us at Starks? I think dinosaurs were roaming the earth when that last happened. Back to though, yeah, of course they've been chaffing on the Prem. Honestly, out of Livingston, Falkirk, and Ayr, I wanted Ayr to win the league because I don't like Livingston. You know who? Where are they? Where's Livingston? Where are they? Oh, there they are. I'm gonna put them there for now, but I'll explain that might change later. But back to it, no, I wanted out of those three because I didn't because Rafe were playing so poor for a while. There's been a few race, and I thought again it says something that Scott Brown's the most likable manager out of the three. Um, but yeah, I have nothing against there, and I think if the Premier League was to expand, it should probably be there. I have also got Partick, currently managed by Brian Graham, former he used to play for Rafe, Champions League Championship journeyman. I don't mind Partick for the last Rafe game I was at because I often work Saturdays, so I can't get to Rafe games all the time. Was the Partick game where the Ultras, just took over Kirkcaldy High Street because I remember seeing people chase it. I remember seeing it on Fife Jammers, but I remember seeing people just running back for Kirkcaldy High Street as I was walking home to get away. But Partick are a decently sized club. They were in the Premiership for a while. And again, they're similar to Ray for the last couple of seasons. They've been knocking on the Premiership. They're in the playoffs now by 2 points. They were in playoffs last season. I think they will go up. Funny enough, I said Partick would go up this season with Rafe. I said Rafe, and predictions was definitely aged horribly. I said Rafe would win the Premiership, the Championship, and said Partick would go up for playoffs. That's aged horribly. Um, you know, I just didn't expect us to be so bad at the start of the season. I thought we'd made some really good signs, but yeah, Partick. If they are in playoffs, I could see a world where they go up through playoffs. Depends, of course, who they face in the playoffs, but you know, of course, they're close to a lot of teams here. Them there. So you've got the neutral point of view. You've got Partick, who are nearby all these Glasgow clubs, and nearby Paisley and that. So, again, for the neutral point of view, you could say Partick would provide the entertainment at least for that. The Derby, I also think if you've got rivalries in this new Scottish Premiership, maybe we could actually get a good TV deal for once, because that's really one of the big issues with Scottish Premiership is the TV deals are just awful. So if they were to expand the league to 14, I think that would be fine. Now, I've got one more team that I definitely think should be in, and it's really, in my opinion, a four-way tie. And you can all debate that, but this was the one I think will surprise a few people. It's Inverness. Inverness, they're a big team. So I've got a couple reasons for this. Number one is, they've won quite a lot of cups, Inverness, and I know they've been going through some hard times recently. They were going into administration. I think I saw something about them getting recently bought over. But the fact that they had that point section stayed up is fair play. I didn't think they'd lose the playoffs last season, so I didn't even think they'd go down. But of course they did, and until they've had that hard time. Of course, also you've got the rivalry you can have between the Highlands rivalry between Inverness and Aberdeen. I know you'll get that with the county, but it's not. I might even include county. I'm a bit. Again, this is probably some bias, and it's definitely recency bias. But they've been in the playoffs the last two seasons, and they've been poor for a while. Don't get me wrong, they were doing really well under Malky Mackay when he had Regan Cook. Brilliant player, by the way. I wonder what happened to him. I know he went down to League Two, I think, but he was really good for Partick for Ross County. But yeah, I think Inverness would definitely, from a neutral point of view, would make it more entertaining. Now, teams who I think you can tie it for are they're not Stirling Albion's not there. I just know a Stirling Albion fan, so I'm just gonna put them. I like to see Stirling Albion in the Championship. I don't have anything against Stirling Albion. I'm not a fan of them. Um, and they tell me how crap East Fife is, so they're not there. It would be funny actually if they're in the new Scottish Premiership. Celtic going to the Bayview every week. Celtic and Rangers go to the Bayview and Dick Campbell in the Prem. That would be funny. Um, for those of you who don't watch Scottish football or don't know much, the Bayview in East Fife was voted the worst stadium in the UK. It is an absolute crap hole. And yeah, it would be funny. It would be very funny if they were in the Prem, but obviously they're not going to be. Now I could probably be in the Championship. If they were to rework the Championship, Allen might be there. Our vote would be they've just won League One. Um, Spartans. The thing about Spartans is they do really well in the cups. They bet Dundee a few years back. Dundee United. They always end up beating it like a big team every year in the cup, and then they just do nothing in the league. Queens Park. I know they're in relegation, but the thing about Queens Park is they've got a really big stadium. They play at Hampden, so you could say for a neutral point of view, oh, you could put Queens Park up, but I'm not gonna. I know recently investors have pulled out of Queens Park. They've slid into the relegation playoffs. I don't think that would happen if they kept Callum Davidson, who was doing, in my opinion, a good job. It was a very unfairly stacked, very good manager Callum Davidson. Just has to squeeze a lot. So let's get into this, right? There's an argument for all of them. Livingston, obviously, they were in the Prem for a lot of years, and then they got relegated. But the thing about Livingston is they play some horrific football, and sort of like I suppose for people who don't watch the Scottish Premiership, the easiest way to describe it is like Burnley under Sean. Not even Burnley under Sean. Oh yeah, you could say Burnley under Sean. Like, are the Stoke old? So you can argue them. County, I feel like County should be at the bottom end of the Prem for a while, except for that one season a few years back, getting in and out in the playoffs. Probably will end up in the playoffs again this season, and they'll probably end up beating Livingston in the final or something. But yeah, County's been in and out of the playoffs, so that's why I was reluctant to put them. Hamilton, you know, they're another difficult one. Hamilton, I think they're sitting seventh in the championship, if I'm right. Where are they actually? Because I completely forgot Greenock Morton. You can make an argument for them. Um, if I say though, they're probably at the lower end of that. So is County, just because they've been poor. But you could always go and argue Greenock Morton could be there. St Johnston, like obviously they had a lot of cup success. Callum Davison won the double. It's based at Scottish City. Although just because you're in a city, again these two prove this, and Queens Park as well, shouldn't automatically mean you should be in the Scottish Premiership. Um, but yeah, I would say it helps, but it doesn't, because I'm trying to think of this from a neutral point of view. You don't want to sit and watch crappy Livingston football. Well, actually, if Rangers, one name I've seen float with the Rangers job would be Sean Dyche. Sean Dyche versus David Martindale. That'd be some proper football right there. I'm gonna go with. I know they're bottom, but it's tough actually. I'm going with St Johnson, and the rivals with these two. You know, they. Yeah, I think they've been poor this season. They're definitely quite poor last season, but they stayed up. I think for me, that's a fair Scottish Premiership. If you were to take two away, it'd probably be again these two. Maybe argue AR Partick. I'm not gonna argue Rafe because I'm completely biased on that. Um, but yeah, I think definitely a 16 team league would help Scottish Premiership. It'd make it more entertaining. You know, because variety is definitely something which would benefit Scottish football. You don't be end up with see Hearts facing Kilmarnock 4 times a season. Not saying they're bad matches. It's just something that it offers variety. You can see Hearts versus Rafe, Hearts versus Partick, Hearts versus Inverness, Hearts versus Ayr. And all the managers and fans seem to be on board with it. I saw it and watched Brendan Rodgers talk about it. I sat and watched, I can't pronounce some other world's boss's name, talk about it. Tony Docherty said it was a good. You've got all these managers coming out and say it would be a good thing, and the players would want it as well. But you've got Neil Doncaster and the rest of the clueless SPFL who want to decrease the league as well, and that's been talked about. I don't know why. A decreased league would actually just take out this whole back row. As much as I love Rafe, it would, they're the 10 teams that probably make up a 10 team Scottish league. But yeah, you've got a bunch of clueless people who think decrease the league would be better when it wouldn't. Variety is definitely a good thing in terms of Scotland. My hope as well is if they were to increase the Scottish Prem, because I know they're working on revamping the Highland and Lowland leagues, that you could revamp stuff like the Scottish Championship. Increase the size of that to maybe 12. You have a 16-team league, a 12-team league, and then another 12-team league. So then you still have the 42 that we currently have. No, my math's wrong. Sorry about that. You would have 28, and then you'd have 40, and then yeah, I suppose if you then have a 10-man League Two, you'd have a 50-team league. Sorry, my math was wrong on that. Yeah, you'd have. I mean, it'd be also good for club survival, you know, and ultimately what's best for fans. Fans want a 16 team Premiership, and even the lower, your Alloa fans, your Spartan fans, Sterling Albion fans, it'd give them more opportunity. So I don't see why you wouldn't want to increase this 16 and increase the league because it creates more interesting matchups. Teams like where are they? Gretna. You know, I remember Gretna. I was quite young, so I don't remember fully, but I remember they came up to the Scottish Premiership. They faced Hearts in the cup final. You know, teams like them, they'd be able to get back into and a good TV deal, which is ultimately something which any team, any fan in Scotland could agree was something we need. A good TV deal is what Scottish football needs. And I think this is a lineup that can bring it. Again, there's definitely some bias in there with me wanting to put Rafe up there and not put Dunfermline up there. But that doesn't matter. Each of these teams, whether it be just due to history, due to size, due to a lot of different factors, would make the most entertaining league, and that's what it's all about. Anyway, this was just a quick video. I hope you enjoyed it all. Let me know what your ideal 16 team Scottish Premiership look like. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye for now.